Hello everybody and welcome back to another video here on my channel, another reading video. And since it's the end of June, we are going over my June wrap up. I just filmed and also edited my July TBR, and I have to say I am very excited for that TBR. So after this video, if you have not yet seen that, it was posted right before this video. Go ahead and check that out and see what this month entails. But without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into my monthly wrap up. First, as always, I want to go over my TBR, which books I did read, which books I didn't even get to. First, I'll start with Junior's Racing to the Finish. I did actually read this. Forever Never by Lucy Score. I did actually read this one. Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Lightning Thief. I honestly did not tackle this one at all. The Black Stallion and Flame. I did actually tackle this one, and I can't wait to tell you guys about it. And then finally, The Last Song by Nicholas Sparks. This was on my TBR now 2 months in a row, and I actually did not get to this one. I didn't really have time because I read Forever Never before it, and I just was not in a mood for another romance, so I didn't even try and tackle this, and I just kind of also ran out of time. But more so, it was because I just didn't want to pick up another romance. I'd say out of 5, reading 3 out of the 5 was really great, and all of these books were actually books for my 25 books I want to tackle in 2025. So I accomplished 3 more of those, which is very exciting. Let's get into my actual wrap up. Starting off, I read majority of this book in actually the month of May. I started it on the 14th and didn't finish it until the 2nd of June. It is actually The Young Elites by Marie Lu. I read the other trilogy by this author, The Legend, Prodigy, and Champion, back in, I do believe it was 2022 or 2023 when we were stationed in Las Vegas, and I did a little reading vlog over it. I kind of enjoyed that. It was very YA, but at the same time there were some things that I just didn't care much for. I wanted to give her a second shot because I did see this at the back of one of those books, and I thought that this was very intriguing. So I ended up finding this for 25 cents at a thrift store here locally in Kentucky, and I decided to pick it up, and I'm so glad I did because I really love more of a sci-fi YA fantasy book, and this book in particular I really enjoyed. I like the little magical system with them. I kind of like some of the things that went into it. Like, it is still YA, so it's a little bit younger, but at the same time I feel like it's just a more interesting little story. I don't have book 2, but I do need to get book 2 and book 3 because I feel like the way it ended, it was kind of on a cliffhanger, not fully, but like one of those where you just want to hop into the next book. But with me not having them, I don't want to go out and necessarily buy them. I did rate this book 4.5 stars. Like I said, I really enjoyed it for what it was. And the second book is called Rose Society, and at the end of this book you kind of get more information on that, and I love that, how you kind of find out the titles of the books in the books themselves instead of just a random title made for a random book. This one made a lot of sense as well, and I really enjoyed the characters too, especially, let's just say, the male main character with our female main character. I was rooting for them. Being a month away now, pretty much, I can't remember anything bad about this book. I might have been like slightly annoyed here and there while I was reading it, but otherwise I've really enjoyed this book. Like I said, the characters and the plot, the story plot, and also the magical system in this book was very enjoyable. So 4.5 stars, and this was the first book I tackled in the month of June. Then starting on the 3rd of June and going all the way until the 10th, I picked up a thriller by Frida McFadden. This is The Inmate. I happened to buy a couple new books from her, and I really wanted to read one of those new books, but then I decided to pick up one of her other books that I already had sitting on my shelf for a couple months. It was The Inmate. I have to say the setting was kind of interesting because, of course, we have our female main character, and she's working at this prison as a nurse practitioner or something like that, and one of the people she sees in jail is actually her ex-boyfriend, who she basically put in jail. The true testament that solidified his being guilty, let's just say, and then he went to jail. So you have classic Frida McFadden. Is he really bad? Is he not? What actually happens at the end of the book? It's like a whole bunch of twists, and a little bit of this book, I will say, was very predictable for me. As soon as I first read this book, because of how The Housemaid was, which was the only other book I've read from her, I figured I knew how it would end, who was actually in the wrong, and then she'd kind of do like that flip-flop type deal with your brain where you're not sure if this person is actually good or bad. And I have to say, I did call everything in the end for the most part, but I still absolutely loved it. She's more of like a predictable thriller reader that, for whatever reasons, she has something written in her books that I get so invested into them, and also the font and how big the spacing is. I felt like I was flying through this book. I could read like 60 pages at work. I liked the then and now timeline too. I liked hearing about the past. I thought it was a little bit underwhelming for a hot minute, but then as I got into it more, it kind of made more sense. And then by the end, there's one thing that I very vividly recalled, which was, I already like guessed it before it happened, which was a certain vehicle, let's just say, showing up. I already knew it was all tied in, but I didn't guess, however, how that person was related, which was very interesting, especially because I don't want to give anything away, but I just thought the whole plot of it was kind of interesting. And I also rated this one 4.5 stars. It was very good. Honestly, I kind of recommend any book from Frida McFadden. So far, I've only read 2, but I do own 4, and I think I'm going to enjoy the other ones just as much. Next, on the 11th through the 18th, I read a kind of autobiography memoir, and it's actually Dale Jr.'s Racing to the Finish. I thought originally when I picked this book up back in in 2018 for my husband. I thought it was going to be just about basically Junior racing, some of his storytelling of racing with his father, and then a little bit after his father's death, and then all the way up to his retirement, which yes, in theory I was kind of correct, but it's more so a book made about his concussions, some things that he suffered, and he wanted to kind of get the word out there and to help people because there's a little bit of misinformation about concussions, and also just like some things that you wouldn't necessarily know about unless you experienced it like he did. So this was a very interesting story, and honestly I love racing, I love cars, and I also very much love Dale and also his son, so I feel like it was very interesting for some reason. I'm reading about notes that he created while he was going through these concussions about how he felt dizzy, or this was happening, this was going through his mind, he had a bunch of anxiety, all this stuff that I never would have really cared about listening to be honest with anybody. I don't think the way he set up this book was very interesting, and I liked how he made it to try and help others out. It wasn't just like, oh, he wrote about it and that's it. He at least was trying to get information out, and he's a very humble person. I don't know, it was very interesting because there's a lot of other things in this book similar to the racing stuff that I wanted in the very beginning. Also, then you get a little bit of his family and his wife, and I just overall I really enjoyed it. It wasn't too long, it was just under 200 pages, and I actually did not rate this one. I think if I would have had to rate it, I just normally don't rate memoirs or autobiographies, I think maybe it'd be like a 4-star. Like, it was very high up there, especially for the enjoyment I had of it. And then of course, since it is Junior and everything with Cletus right now, him and Cletus being kind of buddies, all I can say is just interesting. And I don't know if that's like annoying for me to say that multiple times, but that's all I can really come up with. And then next on the 18th all the way to the 27th, we read probably my worst book this month. Actually, it wasn't probably, it was my worst book this month. It is Forever Never by Lucy Score. I have a reading vlog with this. I said how in the beginning I was not really interested or connected to the characters, and I just didn't feel like I was trying to give it more pages. And usually my thing is, don't think about the book, just keep reading till 50, maybe 100 pages max. Like, that's normally how I am with every book. I don't want to think too much, I just keep reading and keep reading. And for whatever reason, when I'm that far into a book, normally it will just randomly click in my head and everything will just make sense. This book, it wasn't that things weren't clicking, it was more I just wasn't interested as much. Like I said, I just couldn't get connected to the characters, and I don't remember the exact page count, if it was like 150 or so, but eventually I did kind of start getting a little bit more interested in the characters, and I liked a little bit of the backstory with the one character because it was kind of like a couple different side plots in a way. Like, you have her sister and her family, that little dynamic, let's just say, going on, and then you also have the side plot of, I'll just say, a touch and go, how do I want to put it, like a thriller side of it, which that part I really enjoyed. But the problem with that is we go, let's just say 25% in. 25% in, I'm like not invested, and then I'm starting to get really invested. And then from 25 all the way to 75%, we get only our two main characters, the male and the female, which yes, normally I'm okay with that, but I just wasn't as connected to them. And then with everything that was going on, there were so many, let's just say, explicit scenes that I just did not care. I was skipping a lot of pages, and then there were some information that was in those scenes that I didn't get, so then I was a little bit confused and I had to kind of backtrack, find what I was looking for in those scenes, and then flip back ahead to where I was at so that puzzle pieces would click because random information would be in there that was kind of pertinent. At the same time, it was one of those where it was just nothing really going on for me, at least in that section of the book. This was a very, in my opinion, spicy book, which I'm not really fond of. I'm not a very big romance reader. I love story more than I do the other, and I also really like slow burns or like building a friendship first. And I'm not saying that that didn't happen in this book, but I just felt like once stuff happened, it just continuously happened, and this was more of those books written for that aspect, I feel like, because then around 75% of the book we got back into the plot of like the thriller side and the other plot with the sister, and that was really interesting. All the story of that was really interesting. Was it a little bit, for me, because I'm used to fantasy, sci-fi, and even like thrillers, was it a little underwhelming? Yes, but for a romance book, I actually really enjoyed it. I felt like it was really interesting, and I still to this day think that my favorite romance-like book with a little side plot of like thriller-esque, I guess you could say, would be Nicholas Sparks' See Me. I do believe it's See Me. It's like a chunkier book, but like there's some side things happening, and I think in a way this was reminding me of that book, but it just wasn't done as well. And I get it, she's more of a romance writer, so I don't want to fault her too much on that, because I know I'm more of like a high stakes person reading so much fantasy and sci-fi. I have to say it was good for that aspect, but I was very conflicted on how I felt about this book, because a big portion of this book I just couldn't get into, and I skipped so many pages, and it just was not as good as Rock Bottom Girl for me, because that book was more story. Like, if you took all the romance out, you could still have a whole story. This one was like, okay, you could have like a 100-page story, maybe, give or take, if you took all the romance out. But then some of that romance, it's like, I can see why it was made. You got like domestic violence on one hand, and then harder enjoyment, let's just say, on the other hand. And yeah, I don't know how I felt about that. I get it could be like a topic to be talked about, but for me personally, it just wasn't something I liked. So that's all I'm really gonna say about this book. Like I said, I was a little conflicted, and I think my final rating on this book was 2.5 stars. And I hate to say that. I hate rating books lower than 3 stars, to be honest. It's not something I enjoy doing, and that's one reason I gave it a half star more, so it was closer to 3 stars. It was just all the scenes. It was killing it for me. I think if there would have been like 2 scenes instead of 20 or more, maybe I would have rated this about 3 stars. So I'm sorry if this is a book you really enjoyed. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Some of the reviews I looked at, I just couldn't see what they seen, and I don't know, it might have just been me in this moment. But like I said, I'm not really a big romance reader, so I was kind of taking a leap. I did like the little setting of this, being on the island, and also during the snow. I really love the snow, and we were having a heat wave at the time, so I had really been missing the snow when I started to pick this up. So this was really good for that aspect. And then my final book, I started on the 27th and ended on the 30th. It is The Black Stallion and Flame. This is a little, basically it's like a children's book. Also, I didn't know until I was looking at the reviews that this is number 15 in a series. I don't have all of the series, but however, I did realize that because I haven't read the rest of the series, I read this as its own standalone type book. This book to me was really good. I rated this book 3.5 stars. It's more nostalgic in a way for me. I really enjoyed it. I liked the story of like a boy and a horse basically missing or being separated and then coming back together. That part was more of the plot, I feel like, than him meeting, or the Black Stallion meeting Flame itself. I feel like the title could have been a little bit different, but I mean, it kind of makes sense. I do kind of like what happened when you're in the horse's perspective and you're following the horse, and then he meets Flame, and then the things that happen with the mare and the bat. There's a bunch of random stuff in this book, but for me, never reading the rest of the series, it was a great book. I actually really enjoyed it. It just wasn't something I was gonna rate like 4 stars, 5 stars. I think younger me would have really enjoyed this, but seeing as others have commented and left reviews, if you read the rest of the series, this book is apparently very underwhelming. Some people said maybe he just got tired of writing the series and he couldn't think of anything else by the 15th book, that he was just barely creating enough stuff and it was like random, which I can see a little bit because you have a lot of different events that happen in this book, but we have just over 200 pages. I think it's like 213 pages. So you're kind of sitting there and you're like, oh, this is happening really fast, or like, why is this event happening? It's kind of random, but for me, thinking it's a children's book, I just kind of passed it off in my brain. But I guess with the rest of the series, this book is really bad compared to all the beginning ones. And I don't know, I think it's interesting that if you don't read the whole series, or in this case, your total opinion and overview of this book is so much different, especially if you've already invested 14 other books. That's crazy. This was one of those books that was also on my 25 books I want to read in 2025. It was just one that I've had for a while. It's been sitting on my shelf, and I want to have the majority of my books, if not all my books, read that are sitting on my shelf. So I decided to pick this up, especially though it was short. And honestly, I'm very glad I did. I'm glad I tackled this. I don't know why I never wanted to start it. These are the 5 books that I tackled in the month of June. Now, let's go into a little bit of monthly statistics. My goal for last month's TBR, since I did a number generator picking or choosing books from my 25 list, I really wanted to tackle more of that list because I felt like I was a little bit behind. Being halfway through the year, I needed to be around 12 books. I am sitting right now on the 2nd of July. I'm sitting on 13 books out of 25. I have to say that's really good. That's over 52% books tackled on that list, which honestly is not bad. I have 3 books that I put on there technically that I've read. We have Forever Never, Racing to the Finish, and also The Black Stallion. But I'm gonna add a 4th book. I had originally on this list at number 7, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. I am taking that complete series off of my shelf. I soft DNF'd it, I think last month, and I've been sitting and thinking about if I wanted to read that book. I tried, I just couldn't get into it. And you know what? I've had that series long enough. I'm just going to get rid of it, either to my free little library or to Half Price Books, depending on what comes first. Technically, that's gonna be number 4 on my list. I did cross it off instead of like saying I completed it. So it's a little bit different, but I'm still gonna count it because I'm not going to touch that book. I tried, like I said, I'm just gonna say I completed it, even though I am getting rid of it. So that's why I have 13 books out of 25, which, you know what? I'm happy. If that's the only one I get rid of, that's fine. Because the other ones, I feel like I could read every single one of these. Now for my physical books on my TBR. Originally, I had about 113 because I added a couple books either last month or the month prior to this. I have not bought any more books since that trip to Walmart and bought a couple Freedom McFadden books. So we are still sitting at 113, which was 93 when you take off all the books that I read. And now officially, if you take off all of the books I read, plus the 6 Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series books that I'm unhauling, I only have 82 books left on my physical TBR, which is terrible, but it's closer to the goal of being under 60 books. That's was my goal for the end of this year, is I want to be close to or around 60 books, preferably under. So now we only have about 22 books left to go, which is basically what I've already read for this entire year. But that's okay. If I can stop buying books, it will be good. In total this year, I have finished 25 books, which is really good. I am 5 books shy of my first reading goal. If you know me, if you've been here for a while, I do 2 reading goals. I do my one that I want to hit no matter what, and then I have a second reading goal. This one this year is at 65 books. That's just, oh, if I can get to it, I'll get to it. If I don't, then oh, no biggie. Mystery is still my top genre with 5 books. However, romance is in second place with 4 books. I'm kind of surprised about that. And in total for the month of June, I read 5 books at 1,688 pages with 0 5 stars. However, my favorite book of the month of June was actually The Young Elites by Marine Liu. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Be sure to click back on my TBR for the month of July, and also stay tuned for my reading vlog and any other videos I have being published here soon on my channel. I hope to see you in another video here on my channel, and as always, God bless.